The founder of Wrigley's Gum started his company with $32 and turned his gum empire into a $23 billion corporation. I was at a dinner over the weekend, and one of the guys that was at the dinner was a young kid in college who was asking me how he can use the $1,000 that he had saved up in the best way possible, that way he could earn more money. Now, if you have $1,000, if you don't have a ton of money saved up right now and you want to make more money sooner rather than later, the best thing for you to do isn't to just put it into the stock market or an ETF or an index fund. It is for you to take that money and do what Wrigley did. William Wrigley Jr. went to Chicago back in 1891 with the idea of starting a company. But his goal wasn't to start a gum company, his goal was to start a soap company. Now, to be fair, $32 in 1891 is worth about $1,000 today, but he went to Chicago with the idea of starting a soap company, but he had to be creative because how could he get random people to buy his soap instead of other people's soap? So he had the idea to then incentivize people to buy his soap by giving them a free can of baking soda if they buy his soap, and now customers started buying his soap. But then he started to realize that people liked his baking soda more than they liked his soap. So then he shifted his business idea. He pivoted, and then he started selling baking soda. But then he had to incentivize people to buy his baking soda over everybody else's baking soda because he was this random guy in Chicago trying to sell baking soda. So then he incentivized people to buy his baking soda by giving you 2 packs of free gum if you buy 1 can of baking soda. Then he starts selling his baking soda, and some time goes by, and then he realized that people liked his gum more than he liked his baking soda. So then he pivoted again, and now he started investing into his new business idea, which was selling gum, and then this became the Wrigley Gum empire that we know today. See, Wrigley took the money that he had and invested in himself because he knew that that was going to give him the best return and could provide him the most financial freedom possible, and the way that he started was by learning. He was creative. He had to figure out a way to get people to buy his stuff over somebody else's stuff. How could he be different? He didn't start off by selling gum. He started off by selling soap. And then he offered people baking soda as a way to incentivize his customers to buy his soap. And he learned that that was a way to get people to buy his stuff because he was giving people a reason to buy his stuff or somebody else's, and he was willing to take a risk and being willing to fail. Because when he started selling the baking soda and the soap, he realized, well, when he was selling the soap, that people didn't want the soap, they wanted the baking soda. Then when he started selling his baking soda, he realized that people wanted his gum more than they wanted his baking soda, and that's when he really pivoted towards the gum side. He was failing. He failed when he was selling the soap. He failed when he sold the baking soda. Sure, he made some sales, but he never really saw the success that he wanted until he was willing to pivot again and again and again. Just because you have a business idea doesn't mean that's going to be the business idea that works, but you have to get started. If you just sit there on the sidelines, you'll never be able to figure out what is it that people want. If he sat there thinking, do people really want the best soap? How can I formulate the best soap in the world? How can I make the soap the softest in the world? He would have never gotten to the gum business because he was so focused on selling soap then, in this hypothetical example. But instead, he just got started. And then he screwed up. He realized that people wanted baking soda. So then he started selling baking soda. He didn't try to come up with the best baking soda in the world. He tried to just figure out, how can I get people to buy my baking soda? Then he learned that people wanted gum. Then when he realized that people really liked his gum, he found that product. He kept pivoting and pivoting and pivoting. Instead of spending all of his time researching and thinking, he just did it. And when you're doing it, you're learning as well. Sure, you're taking risks. Yeah, you will fail, you will screw up, but then you have to be able to pivot because that's where you're going to find the new opportunities. Then when he found the gum, that's when he started reinvesting back into the gum to make the gum the best products possible. He started creating multiple lines of gum, but he had to figure out what the right product was and how to get that into the hands of his customers. But you can't create the best product for your customers until you have customers, which means you have to be willing to learn how to get your products into the hands of customers, and you got to be willing to take the risk by actually starting. Now, of course, we cover what's happening in the world of business trends and innovation trends and funding trends in Business Briefs, which is my free newsletter for entrepreneurs. So if you haven't joined Business Briefs yet, I highly recommend you join because it's free and it's an easy way for you to stay on the cutting edge of what's happening in the entrepreneurship and business world. So if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur and you want to join Business Briefs, I'll put the link to how you can join down in the description below. But now, how do we take what Wrigley did back in the late 1800s and apply it to what is going on today in this new century? In today's digital economy, business revolves around attention. If you can grasp somebody's attention, you can also get somebody's dollar. But the question is, how do you get the right people's attention? Now with social media, it's how do I get someone's attention on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, on podcasts, on whatever social media platform is up and coming right now or out there right now. How do you get somebody to watch you, listen to you, or see what your brand is producing? And for a long time, I've been saying, you don't have to create content. You don't have to create your own content. But really, this is starting to become more and more important as I see this now, because if you are an entrepreneur, content is the backbone for so many businesses now. And going forward over the next number of decades, I believe that we're going to see a shift where most companies are going to have some sort of direct media outlet as a piece of their business, where a company is going to be working to create content as a way to educate their consumers directly about what the product is and what products to buy. You're seeing this happen more and more across the internet. And so now the question is, how do you get people to follow you, see you, hear you, and then purchase whatever it is that you're selling? And this can be in a number of different ways. Maybe you can educate people about your product. Maybe you can work to build your own personal brand. Maybe you're doing something else to get people to know about your product. When I first starting off on the internet, I started a sock company. And the sock company had an Instagram page. This is a number of years ago, back when there was a lot of different tricks that you could use to get Instagram followers, that you could follow other accounts and you could like people's accounts and do things. This is before there was bots to do this. And so it was a very powerful tool to get people to follow you and learn about you on Instagram. And nobody really knew about this at the time. And so that was how we started to gain our initial followers for my sock Instagram page. And you might be saying, oh, but that's so saturated now. Yeah, but nobody was doing it back then because nobody knew about it. And those followers that we got on my Instagram page for the sock company were then converted to email leads who we told would get a discount when our socks first launched. And then when we launched our socks, we did just over $20,000 worth of sales in the first 30 days. And the way that I was able to get those over $20,000 worth of sales in the first 30 days without spending any money, real money on advertising, was because I had worked to build up this Instagram presence. So it doesn't necessarily have to be your face, although your face would be much more powerful. But now understanding that you have to be able to capture someone's attention, but you have to be different. If you keep doing what everybody else is doing, if you just copy other people's content, there's no reason for somebody to follow you or listen to you or hear you, because somebody else is already doing it and they're probably doing it better than you. So now you have to come up with your own vision, your own idea, and do something different. And this is where that real creativity is. How can you do something that nobody else is doing and then apply that in a way to get people to buy your stuff? But the key to make it work, like what made it work for Wrigley, was you have to be willing to pivot, because your first idea might not work. Maybe your second idea won't work either. Maybe it won't be the third idea. But if you keep trying, you keep willing to take risks, you keep learning, and you keep pivoting as you learn more about what customers want, now you keep willing to pivot to create something better. Because if you just sit there on the sideline and you keep thinking and thinking and thinking and trying to create the best product, well, somebody else is coming there and they're learning faster because they're doing it. They're taking the risks and they're already pivoting while you're still stuck here trying to figure out what it is that you want to do. Just go out there, get started, and when you get started, you can pivot as many times as you need to. Your first iteration of your company might not be the second or the third or the fourth or the fifth, but you have to get started. That way you can figure out and learn faster to get you to where your goals are. Our money, or at least what we call money, is being put to the test. Not because of inflation, not because of interest rates, but because of something called debt monetization. Let me explain. Our government doesn't earn money. It collects money through taxes by taxing people like you and me. And in 2022, the government generated about $5 trillion